Welcome to Culture and Code Podcast. I'm your host, Rayfield Johnson Jr.
And I'm your co-host, Nina Arora-Rowland.
All right. Welcome to another episode. We are going to jump right into it with a discussion about career progression. What do you think about when you think about career progression, Nina?
You know, I think a lot of things. So interestingly, this weekend we saw Odyssey last night. And, there's a lot of themes that most people have talked about over the years. Um, I clearly saw a story of career progression
Okay.
and some of the challenges that come with it and, managing up, managing down, self-reflecting. Um, and we all like to think that we're ready, right? When we think we're ready. And one thing that I recall a time, probably 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, when my career advisor was told me I wasn't ready for promo yet. I was mad. I was mad, mad. Uh, like, what do you mean I'm not ready? I've been doing this, 20 years, blah, 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 blah.
hmm
I wasn't ready.
hmm hmm
I wasn't ready. And I didn't realize that till a year later. I was talking with someone else and um, they were able to articulate, the readiness criteria, which had never been shared before. I was like, oh, no, I'm not ready for that.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. But now that I know what the target is, I got something to drive towards. So I think there's there's a lot of self-reflection involved when thinking about career progression. But you have been with the same company from the time you were in college to now. You've made a lot of hops. What are your thoughts as you reflect on your own career journey? What are some of the things that you think were differentiators?
Since I was in college to now, that's funny.
Or so after
Um,
college? All right,
Yeah,
after.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you're accurate. I've been here for a long time. But I did want to hit on one thing you did say. Um, the readiness for your progression, you had to weigh that out with the awareness of what was expected of that next
Yeah.
level. I didn't want to go past that before we, kind of, at least highlighted that. That's a big part of career progression, like the awareness of what is expected of you next level, because
Hmm.
a lot of times we're looking for either the title, the notoriety, or the compensation change, and we're not always looking at the awareness of what is expected of us at the next level. So
Yeah.
that's a good call out. Wanted to do that before we went into the next part. But yes, I was born and bred to work for Avanade, apparently, which is our company that she's referring to. Um, but yeah, no, the career progression, very, very, very early on, eager. I think everybody, when you come out of college or whatever boot camp you may have been in and that kind of thing, you're eager to impress and to show everybody what you have, right? And at
Mhm.
that time, it was very much hands-on skills and thinking I could better problem solve anybody, than anybody that was against me. So I think um, very similar to what you said. As we were moving up, or as I was moving up, it went from career progression and focus on like individual contributions, and then having to be aware that that was not going to get me to senior director.
Yeah.
Individual contribution is not going to get you there. It's a big part of it, but you have to realize everything else that's involved, and that took a
Mhm.
while. Still, to this day, I think it's still taking a while because I'm looking at the next career progression I'm going to have, and trying to understand what's expected of me. So
Yeah.
it's a good point. But yeah, like analyst to manager, I think was the easiest. I think you probably would agree, right? That analyst to the manager is probably the easiest kind of progression, at least in consulting, because you're just hitting it out of the park every time you get a chance, right? You're either the best developer, or you're leading a team, or you're becoming a trusted advisor with the client at for a segment of a project. It's like very, very easy. And then you're managing one or two people on your team, maybe three or four, it's just very easy to please at that point.
Yeah.
Manager above. Yep, go ahead.
That's another story. And I think also like that transition from being an individual contributor to being a manager, while the actual promotion process might be a little bit easier, once you get to manager, the expectations are way different than what you've been used to potentially, right? And you get hit with the realization is like, oh, maybe I wasn't ready for this,
Yeah.
right? Because the expectations are high. And you know, a lot of companies have guidelines for career levels and stuff like that. But let's be honest, they're so vague that they don't really lay out adequately what the expectations are for each level, right? So it's almost like we need a rubric, but there was one thing you mentioned about, as you reflect on your own, story as you move to the next level,
Mhm.
when that happens, what are some of along the way, what were the differentiators that helped you get to where you were?
Oh, that's a good one. So when I was looking at what I needed to do to get to the next level, um, I have a tendency to kind of be like, I'm an overachiever, right? So I didn't look at going back to what you were saying, that rubric that said, here's the exact next level. I would always go two levels above. And the
Yeah.
reason why is, and you kind of hit this on the head earlier, um, when you get to the level and their title is, manager, you might focus on, hey, I'm going to manage these team members, right? I'm going to manage this project. And then you think that's a limitation of what you should be doing. And that's not. That is the what do you call it? The base step. Now you're a manager. They expect you to manage, right? You can't come back at the end of the year and say, hey, I manage this team. I'm ready for promo. They're like, great. That's what we were expecting. That's how you got to that promo. You did everything you said you were ready for manager, right?
Yeah.
But like in our business where manager goes from manager to either senior manager or director, um, that's a bigger jump, right? It's
Yeah.
more expectations there. So I had a tendency always to look at two levels above. So when I was an analyst, and we had a different structure back then, but when I was an analyst, I wasn't looking at senior analysts. I was looking at what consultants were doing,
Yeah.
because I knew that at least from an analyst to senior analyst, I was expected to do that work, right? I
Mm-hmm.
was expected
Mm-hmm.
to get to that level. What would it, get the attention was if I was doing things that were at a consultant level, without being overbearingly telling them, hey, I'm doing this consultant level,
Yeah.
humble, being humble. So awareness and humble, being, I would say it's exciting to say, hey, I did all this stuff, but there's the art of how to express that and explain that to people. So I think that's another big part of it is how are you humbly explaining that you are doing things at a consultant level, with the consideration of wanting to move to like a senior analyst.
Yeah.
I did that with every level, every band, right? So, um, what do you think? What did you do? Did you do the same?
Um, no, I actually looked inward and focused on being proactive versus reactive
Okay.
instead of focusing on levels and rubrics and expectations. I didn't concern myself with that. And it sounds a little bit unorthodox, right?
Yeah.
But just the way my brain is wired, and also as a handy trick to mitigate undue stress,
Yeah.
self-inflicted stress. I don't focus on that. I focus on, okay, what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And well, I mean, I'm a mom and a wife, and I'm also an overachiever. So my brain's a little wired to do that, right? It's just to kind of assess my surroundings and see what needs to be done. Where are the gaps? It happens throughout life, not just in career, right? So I think being proactive versus reactive is the biggest mindset shift anyone could do in or take in as they're progressing through their career and transitioning from being an individual contributor into a manager or a leader. Um, and we always hear about focus on what's on our plate and don't look at other people's plate. And that is 100% accurate. However,
Hmm.
if the only thing on your plate is your project, that is
Maybe it stuff.
what you're expected to do,
Right.
and you have unanswered questions about why your career isn't progressing, then you got to take a pause and see what other people are doing to differentiate themselves. Because clearly just focusing on what's on your plate wasn't enough,
Yeah.
right? So you got to understand what the differentiators are. And I see this a lot, especially at the manager level. Um, well, I've been on my project for like 4 years.
Hmm.
I'm, 100% chargeable. Why am I not getting promoted? Well, what else are you doing?
Yeah. Where are you pushing the boundaries?
What's your brand?
Yeah, I agree.
Do people know that you're an expert in this technology or this methodology?
Yeah.
Right? Those are the differentiators that, you know, I think everyone is talking about it, but not a lot of people really understand it. So, and what's behind having those differentiators is being proactive.
Yeah. I like that. Especially the looking inward because as you progress, the people who are also being compared to you are being compared on different things.
Yeah.
Um, one of the things you kind of mentioned around, are you standing out as a technology leader?
Hmm.
You may be at manager going to director, thinking about technology leader while the other person is focused on their performance in front of the client. So they may be more of a delivery manager. You
Yeah.
can't really compare those two and say, hey, this person is more ready than the other. You have to make sure that you're doing a self-assessment to your point, right? You're
Yeah.
looking at what you have already set as this is the table stakes and this is where I'm going to be on. That's the comparison. It's not the
Yeah.
comparison against, hey, that person does more with Databricks or that person does more with Fabric. Um, that's not a good comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one.
100%.
Hmm.
Branding is a big part of it. Like you read comments, in forums and chats and all that
What's a forum?
about, oh, I'm thinking about Fishbowl in particular.
Name one exactly. Yeah, fishbowl.
Right.
There you go.
People cry nepotism and this and that. And, you know, that it's not nepotism most of the time. It comes
Mm-hmm.
back to branding, right? And awareness. If someone is not hiding, but if someone is not visible
Mm-hmm.
and the leaders on the call don't know a candidate's name,
Mm.
then that's a clear indication that there's something missing
Yeah,
on
completely
all
agree.
sides. And
Completely.
it's not just on the candidate's part, right?
Hmm.
Leaders also have a responsibility to make an effort to get to know who's on their team, who's working, who does what. But they can know it from a roster perspective and a data point perspective. That relationship building is a two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing is, as we progress in our careers and we get higher and higher, the pool of people actually gets smaller and smaller. So to your point, your brand should be easily identified as you get smaller and smaller. Most of us
100%.
start off at the analyst level where there's a bunch of us, right?
Yeah.
And we still stood up to get to senior analyst or consultant or whatever the organization has set up. But when you get to the higher levels, that is a very small group. Your branding should be completely defined. That's a good point. I like that. Um, what do you think your brand is?
It depends on what day it is.
Yeah,
Yeah, that comes back to that self-marketing thing.
yeah.
I'm not that good at it. I'm too shy to answer a question like that. But
Mm.
I do think that my brand is rooted in people leadership. And while that's not the only thing I can do, that is one of my superpowers. So I think that's what it is. Perhaps presentations and speaking and, you know, it comes down to building relationships.
Yeah,
Because, in any business transaction or interaction, you're building a relationship, right?
yeah,
So I yes, for those who don't know, I am still technical. A lot of people don't realize that, right? That, especially once you take on roles that are, you know focused on people leadership, they forget the part of all the stuff you did to get you to that point.
yeah,
It doesn't disappear. It doesn't just vanish into thin air. It's still there. If I had to write a SQL statement, I could probably still do it.
yeah.
Pretty good one. Build a data model. But yeah, so I think that's what my brand is. What do you think your brand is?
And that's a good question. People leadership, innovation, great conversationalist.
Yeah.
I do enjoy conversation. So I think when people think of my brand, either whether it's a technology conversation or if it's a people or if it's just, like you said, random podcast discussions, I want them to understand that I do enjoy the conversations,
Yeah.
and I bring something to it. But one of the things you brought up just a moment ago is not just about the branding, but the exposure. How do you get that exposure out there, right? And how do you seek exposure? That is hard for people who, to your point earlier, may be a bit more introverted. They might
Yeah.
look at how others are doing their exposure, and they say, "Hey, I can't do that." Actually, a good friend of ours actually had a conversation. I won't bring the person's name up, but that had a very similar conversation with me. And it was more along the lines of, well, these people should know what I'm doing because their brand actually was pretty secure, very technical brand, but the exposure and how to get that out there was not. And they
Yeah.
just could not get that in their head until we really had a thorough conversation around it. Once everyone else was realizing that brand had been there for a while. Um, but yeah, no, that person actually helped with the progression and they got to where they were expecting.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think if anything, I want to be known for compassion, loyalty, technology, advancements, innovation. I feel like I'm trying to develop the brand that I am a more of a futurist and not just an
Mhm.
implementer. And going back to what you were saying around
Yeah.
um, being reactive versus proactive. So
Right.
um, I think that's important for everybody's brand, honestly, especially in
Totally.
technology. If you're in this space right now where everyone's saying AI and you're not seen as an innovator or a futurist, then you're going to get passed over.
I like that you're using the word futurist because I see that a lot in the art world.
Yeah,
And it's really, to me personally, it's very comforting to hear it in the context of technology because it's true, right? If we're not embracing futurism as technologists, then we're left behind already,
yeah,
right? And it's very similar with our that feeds right into our career progression.
it does.
Right. So you got to be proactive instead of reactive. And being proactive is kind of trying to look into the future.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. It really is like, what are the needs? What will be needed once this is done? Trying to anticipate the next thing. And if so, branding is important, right? Anticipating needs is important and bridging those gaps. It's a great way to build your brand. At one point in my career, my brand was being a sharpshooter. I was the person you brought in to fix a failing project. This is prior to Avanade. But you
yeah.
know
Because
what I'm saying?
when I met you, you were a tester, so this is all news to me. Go
For
ahead.
those who don't know, I've never been a tester. This is just Ray trolling me. Yeah, and that's a funny thing that you say, but a lot of women in technology get pushed into testing roles.
Hmm.
And when I first took on a people leadership role here at Avanade, that was the number one complaint I got from some women, right? And even outside of Avanade is I always get stuck on testing roles.
Hmm.
Guess what? Some of our strongest technologists are women.
Yeah, 100%. I
Yeah,
agree with that.
so it's something that that's probably another episode all in and of itself, right? Is
You're
some of the challenges
setting us up for more.
we setting it up, teeing it up. Um, but yeah, so I think another thing to keep in mind as we're moving into, more and more leadership levels is people need to think about how they communicate,
Mhm.
right? That executive leadership, if you're interacting with executive leadership, your communication style also has to evolve
Mhm.
to include that persona. Doesn't mean change anything about yourself, doesn't mean change how you communicate in other situations, but you need to add another layer. Because, for example, if you have a business leader who is managing upwards of $100 million portfolio and they're in meetings all the time, you can't get time on their calendar. Do you really think it's a good idea to message that person every 2 weeks about your career progression?
Should be 1 week, every 1 week then.
It's probably not a good look,
Yeah.
right? So being aware of how you're coming off as well, right? And being mindful of the schedules of the people you're interacting with and understanding the process,
Yeah.
right? If you had a conversation a week ago, the chances are nothing has changed in the week or two that has passed. So why are we having this conversation again?
So awareness
So
and patience.
patience is a big thing, right? Because to me, that communication style indicates that someone is not ready,
Yeah.
right? Because they're lacking situational awareness and not taking things into consideration. They're not reading the room. Going back
Hmm.
to our last episode,
Yeah.
they're not reading
Reading
the
the room.
room.
Yep.
These things take 6 months at least to change, right? So every few weeks is not it.
Yep. I agree with you. The one thing we didn't hit on in this discussion around career progression is knowing that unfortunately there is time where your career progression may take you away from where you currently are. I think we probably should do that in a different conversation.
Yeah.
But it's a hard thing for people to grasp. But I mean, this is a good example. I've been at the same company for 19 years, but I've been very lucky that when I saw a change I needed to gravitate towards, it was there, the same company.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not the same for everyone. And I mean, I think you know this as much as I do from our recruiting process. That's how we got some of the best people in the company because they had to go from their current organization to a new one that offered more opportunities. But again, the career progression is not just linear. You have to look at all different variables and opportunities.
Yeah.
But in if you're not getting the results, if you feel that you're really doing the right work and you're aware of what it takes to get to the next level, then that's a different discussion and a different podcast. And we can bring it up at that point. But yeah, I think we should summarize. I mean, the things that I heard on this that were the same between you and I were around the awareness, the branding, the exposure, and just the realization of readiness. What else did I miss? You're good at summarizing these things.
I think it's really important to um, think about what your differentiator is going to be, which comes back to your branding, right? But it goes beyond that because if you're someone who's doing conferences all the time and you're doing excellent work on your project, where's the story,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So your personal branding is great. How is that helping the company you work for?
yeah.
Is it generating leads, right? Or is it helping with recruiting? So asking those kinds of questions instead of just doing, double click into it. Treat it like a project, with a client and do some requirements gathering,
Hmm.
do some gap analysis.
Yeah.
And everything in life is a project. So I think that if I had to summarize everything, I'd say treat your own career like a project.
And who are you managing in that? Yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it. I agree. I think that's a good summary and a good place for us to we could talk all day, right? But let's let's transition into closing this out. So again, thank you for spending. I don't know how much time we recorded today, but thank you for spending the time with us. Hopefully this podcast was helpful and you got something out of it from career progression. I'm sure we will revisit this multiple times in our next series of podcasts. But until next time, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe. What else should they do, Nina?
Hashtag Culture and
Hashtag.
Code Podcast.
There you go. Hashtag Culture and Co podcast. Again, thank you for your time. I'm Ray. Goodbye.
Take care, everyone.